Good morning. My name is James Gillies, and I'm the head of cybersecurity for Logicalis UK and Ireland. So from a cybersecurity perspective, absolutely the landscape has changed dramatically from this idea of being able to do just the minimum and then having a reactive approach is okay because you'll be able to repair the damage and move forward with your daily business operations. However, because of the ever-evolving threat landscape, businesses are finding it much harder to keep up. Their ability to detect quickly, contain, and then eradicate and recover is becoming ever more challenging. So we as a service provider are looking for ways to help businesses increase their security posture from wherever they happen to be, their as-is state, to that next level of maturity. EASM. So EASM, kind of, if I generalize the term for external attack surface management, it's a relatively new concept in terms of the overall approach. But it uses elements of cybersecurity that we know before. The idea is that it's a more proactive approach to being able to identify, map, and detect the potential vulnerabilities that you have in your external-facing digital assets. If we talk about where an organization takes the various actions they need for compliance and regulation purposes, typically, this means doing the minimum required to tick the box, to pass whatever kind of compliance requirement that you have, and then move on. And this would include things like performing a penetration test once a year. And if that's all you have to do, and you run it once a year and you identify the issues, then fine, you move on. But that's not the same thing as making sure that the overall external attack surface, that any point of entry is what the threat actor is looking for to establish that foothold into the organization, is trying to achieve. So by wrapping together a combination of different practices to become aware of what those risks are, identify them, and then close those gaps before they can be exploited by the threat actor, this increases your overall security posture, raises the maturity of the organization, and hopefully, as I say, reduces the likelihood of a threat becoming something that gains an initial foothold into the organization. That's the main thing you're trying to stop. There's a number of different types of asset that you have that, added up together, they make up your digital footprint. And depending on the size of the organization, there can be hundreds, if not thousands, of these so-called digital assets. And each one of those, if it's not been looked after in this proactive way that I'm talking about, could lead to the beginnings of a breach for the organization. So what EASM will do, so is this external attack surface management, you're going to help it identify who you are as an organization. And from a technology perspective, that platform will crawl or will then go and discover all those different digital assets that you may hold. And then over a period of time, let's say 24, 48, 72 hours, it's going to build up a picture gradually of what your attack surface looks like. And the attack surface is the battlefield. It's anywhere where the threat actor may identify that you have a weakness, because that's where they're going to go after first. So by understanding what that overall attack surface looks like, the EASM platform will build that picture up for you. It will then identify all of the assets that it's discovered. It will show you the types of asset that they are. It will then show you the level of security configuration that they have, and then potentially any vulnerabilities associated with those types of asset. And in doing so, what it's able to do is to bring all of that data together and then correlate it in such a way that it can then give you a list of the prioritized set of actions that you should take in the relevant order so that you can then reduce that exposure level, because it's the exposure level that the threat actor is looking for. So how it differs from traditional vulnerability management is that with vulnerability management, you are scanning your known set of assets and you're looking for things that you are able to fix in a fairly narrow and known ecosystem. With EASM, the approach is that you're looking for potentially unknown vulnerabilities and unknown assets that you weren't even aware that you had a potential issue with. By moving from this continual scan process to be constantly made aware of something that wasn't even in your inventory before, you are able to have this wider and more proactive approach to just vulnerability management on its own. It's evolved to a point now where vulnerability management as a single responsibility, which might be just yet another thing that's lumped onto the IT or infrastructure team, it forms part of this wider role, which is much more security focused, and as we now call is known as attack surface management, or in this case, external attack surface management. There's a number of threat vectors that EASM can help an organisation address. 80% of breaches that can occur for services that customers have in the cloud, 80% of those are due to misconfiguration. And this speaks to organisations that have maybe gone through some form of transformation project, they've got it up and running in the cloud, they've turned it on, end users are happy, the business are happy, crack on. But that doesn't necessarily mean that it's been configured to best practice from a security perspective. The exposure level for those services becomes greater and greater, and then if not touched and then serviced and maintained, those services can become unpatched. So you can have unpatched systems. That's another threat vector. Just because you've got detection capabilities in place doesn't mean that you can't be exploited. If the vulnerability exists, the vulnerability exists. So the threat actor is going to be able to exploit that vulnerability. So patching systems, whilst it's been around forever, it's even more important than ever. Shadow IT. So shadow IT is talking about the types of data and services coming in and out of the organization that IT aren't necessarily fully aware of. And as a result, there could be either weaknesses in there, or there could be the risk of data exfiltration or some other kind of issue that could then lead to a breach. So shadow IT is something that you would want to pick up on in terms of a threat vector. Supply chain management is a massive issue. Organizations will take services from third-party companies that provide platforms from all over the world, and when vulnerabilities appear or there's a breach in a given platform with a third party, that may not be with you, but you're using that technology, you're using that platform. So a threat actor may then look to take advantage of that and then compromise you via that third-party platform. So supply chain risk is massive, and is actually one of the biggest threat vectors in today's threat landscape. For organizations that don't currently have an EASM solution in place, the external attack surface isn't going anywhere, and the risks associated with not addressing the vulnerabilities that may exist and become increasingly worse will never be identified. So they'll never be mapped to what level of risk prioritization that you need to set against that. All that's going to happen is that external attack surface is going to become worse and worse and worse, to the point where it becomes easy pickings for that threat actor. The binary difference between not having that solution in place and an organization that takes that step is moving from that reactive to that proactive stance. By being that one step ahead of the threat actor, you've got a fighting chance of understanding where it is that you might be targeted, before you've been targeted. And in terms of the actual applications where that might make sense, for a website that has just been released by marketing as part of a new go-to-market, and that may have some online service that customers can interact with. And that's great that an organization is able to put that service out there. But if something within that platform could be targeted by that threat actor, that could be a way in that hasn't been identified until you run a penetration test, say 6 months or 12 months down the road, the so-called window of opportunity that exists for that vulnerability and that vector of attack that the threat actor could take is massive. And that's the whole point of EASM being able to identify all of those unknown threats that potentially pose a risk to your organization. Even in the industry, it's a fairly new topic. It's, EASM, we're speaking to a lot of our vendors at the moment, and it's their next big thing. So each year or 18 months, there's the new buzzword that comes out. What's the next thing we need to be looking at? And EASM forms a large part of that narrative. So understanding the value that it brings and how it can help organizations address the risks that they may be carrying, be able to take that proactive step, is certainly why it's something that we want to speak about now to help educate our customers.